Slack Tail Squad, assemble.
All right, this is the Slaptail Squad. I'm the Beaveman. Happy late 4th of July. And with me is the Ronz.
Hey.
And we're
By the
still
way,
remote
if you notice, I
podcasting.
changed my Skype name to the Ronz.
Good for you. Nice job.
Well,
Nice work. There's these
I-
little victories in life.
I figured pretty much, I mean, if I'm going to keep using this account and make it my primary Skype account to do podcasts or whatever, I thought I'd do that for you.
Well, that's a good plan. We all of us here in the listening audience appreciate your commitment to the Slaptail Squad. And if you're listening to this, hopefully you're a member of the Slaptail Nation, and you look forward to hearing from us.
I do. And I did not post anything on the 4th of July like I wanted to. I got a little engrossed in what I should do with my car, like I mentioned. But it also reminds me of David Copperfield, the magician, when he did the Statue of Liberty trick. Right? He made it disappear because he wanted people to understand what rights and liberties are that you have and what would happen if they got taken away.
Is that why he did it?
Yeah.
I thought he just did it because it was one of those things to do.
It was, but it's one of those things. It's like, he is a big patriotic fan at the time, still is probably. But imagine if you took that symbol of freedom away, and how would you react? Not that everybody's toppling statues anyway around the country right about now.
Right.
So how have you been?
Oh, I've been pretty good. I had to do my 48-hour work week to cover for the other provider. She needed some time off. But that was followed by my 6 days off. So I'm on day, I got 3 days left, 3 days off left.
So what have you been doing? What has the Beaveman been doing?
Well, the first day, unfortunately, I have to turn my car in at the end of the month because I did a lease on it. And so the first day, what I did was I went and bought a new used car.
CJ7 or CJ5?
No, I went for fuel efficiency and got a Chevy Volt.
That is not becoming of a manly car for you.
No, that's okay though because of emissions and because I do a lot of driving. It takes me a good 50 minutes to drive to work, and I'm spending a lot of money on gas, and I'm making a much larger carbon footprint. So if I can make a much smaller carbon footprint with this particular car, then in the future, I will be able to hopefully justify my purchase of my muscle car like I had when I was a young man. The same car that we talked about before that my grandmother had. That's my dream car.
The Chevy Pinto.
No, the Ford Maverick Grabber.
Yeah. Well, I thought for sure if you had to have a dream car or dream vehicle, you would go back to the Jeep, of course. But
my wife has a Jeep. Why would I go buy another one?
For you?
No. And that's not what I would want to commute in for, an hour drive one way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you seem to be the outdoor type of guy, so I figure pretty much that's what you would like to do. But I don't know if that's the.
No, I'm also fiscally responsible and try to be somewhat environmentally responsible also. And I can't justify spending large amounts of money on gas every week. I think that's ridiculous. So if I get something that, when you have to commute that far, I think you would probably do the same thing. I don't think you'd go buy a CJ7 that gets, 11 miles to the gallon if you were driving an hour one way.
I don't know. I've always wanted a Jeep, so I would probably do that. So yeah, I would.
No. Well, you'd have to have a pretty good job to justify spending that much money because it's not cheap. So,
okay, fair enough.
I personally do not do that. So I would rather spend my money on something else, like food
or podcasting.
Right. All right. So that's what I did on Friday. What did you do this holiday weekend?
Well, with all the cancellations, we kind of said we looked around and going to the different 4th of July activities, and then we realized they were all canceled because of COVID. So there wasn't much we could do. However, I got released into the wild for a little bit. My wife had to go to the woman's doctor, we'll say. And I said, "Do you want me to go for support?" And she goes, "Yeah, come with me." So we
Really?
did.
She wanted you to go.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so many things wrong with that, but please continue with your story.
What is wrong with going to support one's spouse to
Did you
the?
stay in the car?
No, I did not, but I did follow your advice. I came in there without a mask on and unsanitized hands. No, I followed your advice. The first thing I said is, the Beaveman says, you know, when people are going to support their spouses for whatever reason in medical facilities, they can do one of two things. One, put the mask on, social distancing, hand sanitizer, and at the doctor's office, they have hand sanitizer about every 6 feet, so you're pretty much covered there. Just use it and wear the mask from the start that you get inside the building to when you leave the building. Just wear the mask. It's not going to hurt you. Once you're outside in the parking lot and there's no one around, you can drop the mask. All right. Okay, cool. So I followed that advice, right?
So
Or
you
wait
partially followed my advice.
What's the other portion that I did not?
You didn't need to go. So additional people don't need to go to the medical
I
offices.
did because they needed some information to make sure that I was the secondary information guy.
So you're
You know,
saying you're saying your wife could not provide that information.
she could, but I won't go into the details of said visit, but it was more for support. It's like if the Swan had to go in and she goes, "Well, you would ask, you want me there?" And you could read her face. She'll probably say, "No, that's okay." You're like, "No, I'll go for support." Now, I know if she was adamant about it, she would say no, and you would say no. But my wife wasn't adamant about it, and I said, "I'll go and support." And I kept a distance. I really did, right? And I kept my mask on. I didn't sit next to anybody that wasn't any more than 6 feet away. Even in the cramped office, I made sure I was social distancing, right? And I wore a mask. However, my actions were, it was a OBGYN / women's health clinic. And I was making jokes, making the staff laugh, even though I had my mask on. And as I'm walking out, my wife came out and, she was going to give me the news of what happened. And I said, "How did everything go?" She goes, "Everything's okay. We're safe there." And I said, and I didn't mean to say this out loud. I thought I whispered, but I had a mask on, so I didn't know my voice level. I told my wife, my lovely wife, "Hey, this should be a great place to pick up women." Because, well, they're already pregnant and they can't get pregnant, but, a lot of them are probably going through menopause. So it'd probably be a great place to pick up women. All of a sudden, I look over and the staff of women are quiet. And they all look at me and I said that to the point where you guys could hear that, right? They all went, "Uh-huh." Like, "Oh, that sucks. That
Yeah.
sucks."
Yeah, because you know why. I mean, what do you think that what might be the thoughts that you think that possibly were running through their heads when they heard you say something like that?
Security. And honestly, and I said, I touted that I do a podcast, and they wait for me to say stupid shit like this. And they go, "Really, what's the podcast name?" So I gave it out to them, and I'm like, "Please listen. And if you think I'm wrong, you can tell me." But it was one of those things where,
Yeah,
I,
I think one of the difficult things about medical offices that people don't understand in general are when you think that something's not very serious. Like, for some reason, people think that the dermatology office is not that of a serious location. There's actually an episode of, if you remember back Seinfeld, he was like dating some dermatologist there for a while. And he was complaining, I think it was to Elaine, about how she's always talking about saving lives this and saving lives that. And he's like, "But what is she really saving? She's a dermatologist. That's ridiculous. She's not saving lives." And so he ends up calling her. They go on like a date or something, and they're talking, and she's talking about her day and how difficult it is to save lives, and how he doesn't, how great his life is because he's a comedian and he doesn't have that kind of stress. And he just finally goes off on her and says, "What kind of lives are you saving? I call you Pimple Popper MD. That's all you're doing. You're popping pimples and stuff like that." And of course, lots of people get melanoma and, you know,
Yeah,
basal
and
cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma. And it's not that the majority of the patients that dermatologists are dealing with are dying from melanoma, but they do treat serious things. So when people treat the medical office like it's a good place to go and socialize, that's what drives me crazy too, is people seem like it's a fun time to socialize and joke and everything. I'm like, your jokey situation, it might be relatable to about maybe 15% of the people that are in a doctor's office, but the rest of them are there for kind of scary things, and maybe they don't appreciate that too much.
well, also it's a mechanism with dealing what's going to be bad news for me at least. I knew why I was there, and I didn't know how to handle the news. For me, it's a mechanism. I mean, let's face it, if I can cope with it in that way, I will. But when you walk into a situation and the prognosis could be anything, and honestly, we weren't sure about that. We discussed it and everything. We didn't know what the prognosis would be. What do you deal with it? What's your coping mechanism? Right? Some people are sullen, some people are serious, some people joke about it. That's their coping mechanism. So I always looked at it like that. Right? And I don't know how to handle it. If you
Yeah.
came to me, the Beaveman, saying, you know what, I'm cancer and I've got 6 months to live. I'm like, all right, so now it's the time to go get that CJ7. And you would tell me that's not funny. And I'm like, how could I deal with that? Right
No,
now,
that would be a pretty appropriate thing to say. I think what we talk about is context. When you're talking about something that's funny, when you talk about there's nothing wrong with having a joke or whatever. It's the type of joke that you do. If you're in a obstetrics and gynecology office that only sees women, and you make a comment like, "Oh, this would be a pretty good place to come," even though you're making a joke, that wouldn't be the appropriate type of joke subject to use.
but I didn't think they could hear me. I thought only my wife could hear me. And that was my mistake, not
Hmm.
theirs. Right. So, and the mask actually muffles your voice level. So I said something that I thought was funny. I know it was funny. It was just they heard it, and I didn't think they could hear it. And it happens. I'm not going to
Right.
apologize for it. And if we got a couple more listeners out of it, I'm okay with that too. Right.
Yeah, again,
So,
listeners that I probably don't want in a local area from a medical office, considering what profession I do. Yeah,
well, they would have to hunt you down and know who you are.
it's pretty
And
easy to do.
yeah, you may, yes,
It's
it
pretty
is.
easy to do. I've worked in that town in several positions, so it's pretty easy to do. So,
Well,
yeah.
anyway, that's what I did this week. And then on top of that, it's been a crap week. I wanted to post something for 4th of July. I did, and of course that was my mistake as well, because what happened was my car took another dive. We got it back from a repair place, national brand. They replaced the ignition. If you saw the picture I posted on my real Facebook page, you could see what happened. They said, "Oh yeah, the ignition is bad. We're going to replace that." Okay, got it back. The ignition got replaced. Now whatever they did, the car wouldn't start. Right? It sounded like it was draining the battery, so I was screwed there. And the windshield wiper fluid won't pump. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So if I wanted to go anywhere this weekend, I was at the mercy of have my car not starting. Right, even though it sounded like it was going to turn over, and it did turn over on occasion. Whatever they did, drain the battery.
Yeah, how do they
And
know after they fixed it that shouldn't they know that it's not going to start or do anything? I mean, how would they hand it
well,
back to you?
if you got a full charge of your battery, it'll start. That's not the problem. But eventually, if you take it off the lot and now the problem presents itself, how do they know it happened?
Mhm.
Right? How do they know they didn't fix it correctly? And it pissed me off. Right? So luckily, my neighbor has a portable battery pack to jump your car. So if I wanted to go somewhere, I could. Right? But I didn't want to take the risk of. I think it's got like 8 charges to it, and then of course you have to recharge it. But where I wanted to go, once again, social distancing. I wanted to go out to the beach. I wanted to go out to South Haven, which is a great place to go to, especially in 90-degree heat. I couldn't, right, for fear of the car dying and just social distancing. And this really sucks. I miss being out in public.
Mhm.
I
Well, if
miss
you look
going.
at a lot of the pictures, it doesn't look like many people are missing being out in the public because it looks like they're still doing it anyway.
Yeah, I can webcam South Haven, and that's what I do. And I'm like, well, if we go, then I kind of plan our route out if I can't. And it sucks. It really does, because I really want this pandemic, if you want to call it, to be done with.
It is a
I really,
pandemic. Why do you say if you want to call it? What else are you going to call it? That's what it is.
because you're going to offend somebody somewhere left or right. It pisses me off.
Ah, I see.
It really does. Well, it's like, what do you want to do with it? I don't know. So in the upcoming election, I'm voting for. I'm gonna can. You know what? I'm gonna pencil your name in and vote for you. I
Oh,
think
that's good. Yeah, waste your vote. That's a good that's a good idea. Waste your vote. Yeah, waste your vote.
you know what though. Let's talk about that for a second. It is a voting right to pencil somebody in,
Yes, it
and
is.
that's really cool.
I
It's
guess.
not. It pisses me off that a lot of the people that I know, were in the military, and it doesn't matter or where you stand on political matters. That if you don't vote because you're pissed off, you're pissing away your right to vote. And what these guys, regardless of where you stand, of what they did for you. So don't sit there and say, "Well, I'm not going to vote because I don't like one of the candidates." Pencil somebody's name in, for damn it, for, for God's sake. Pencil the Beaveman. Say, "I want him as my president because he's sound." Right?
I
I
feel
would.
like I couldn't do a worse job.
You couldn't be. Well, there you go.
I don't think I could do a worse job.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think you could do a worse job.
Well, speaking of the fourth and
Fourth.
the perception of the those who are not Americans of what we're like, I actually went and found a little article that said 20 weird things foreigners say about Americans, from cultural quirks to courtesy and more, that I thought we could go over.
Awesome. Let's do it.
They're not that funny. Some of them are kind of funny. Let me see here. First one. I thought this one was pretty accurate. America goes to war everywhere. Eh, I
I
mean,
don't
we're
think we've
pretty
ever
much.
gone
It
to the
does seem
war.
like we're kind of a warring nation.
Yeah, but I don't think we've ever gone to the war down in Antarctica.
When they say everywhere, I think they mean the collective everywhere that might be occupied. In other words, we don't go, other nations don't go to war quite as frequently as we do. We do seem to go to
Oh,
war pretty quickly. And as a matter of fact, as an infantryman, well, that was my job. Of course, I joined the military assuming I was going to go to war because that's kind of our thing. We at that time, before the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, we would go to war on average probably about every 6 years. That's a pretty decent average. So to go
okay.
for a long period of time without having, even if it's a minor conflict, where we go invade, like Panama was considered a pretty minor conflict. Um, the Dominican Republic or Honduras or any of those areas that might have like minor conflicts, small
Yeah,
police
but
actions or whatever. But those are
is it
pretty
an act
common.
of is it an act of war or conflict, and defined by Congress?
But that's not my point. My point is that people think we go to war everywhere. I was just saying that every few years we do seem to go somewhere. Whereas it's
Okay.
a little bit different now because they've been in Afghanistan, Iraq, that type of area for going on 20 years now. So, but when I was in, of course, when I was in, I don't know, when I was in high school, there was Panama. Right after that, there was the war, and the war in Iraq after the invasion of Saudi Arabia. And then after that, there was multiple conflicts that I got locked down for that I never went to combat that whole time. The closest I came was when we got locked down for the last time I got locked down was for Haiti, where we actually had birds in the air, but they got called back. So, and then after that, I got out. But yeah, we seem to be a pretty warring nation. We go wherever there seems to be. I would like to say it is in the interest of the oppressed, but a lot of times it's in the interest of the almighty dollar or
I
whoever
don't
we
think we
want
ever
to put
went
in
to the.
power.
I don't think we ever went to war with Saudi Arabia. I think we were asked to
I didn't say
buy
Saudi
this.
Arabia.
Yeah,
I
you said
said
Saudi.
when Saudi Arabia invaded, we're talking about when they invaded Kuwait.
Uh,
I mean, the war in Iraq.
there we go. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? So you're starting
Saudi Arabia's
shit
our
with another
ally.
country. I
You're
like
right.
this.
You're
This
right,
is
right,
how
right.
war starts.
No,
It's like, did you hear what the beat man said?
when Iraq invaded Kuwait, is what I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
I hate to say all the Middle Eastern countries get confused in my head, but they pretty much do.
Okay. That's awesome.
But no, Saudi Arabia is our ally, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Everybody's our ally when
say?
they need us.
Everybody's our ally. Yeah. So, but no, I would agree with that. I think that probably a lot of the world does look at us like that. I don't know if that's a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's to my in my point in life, it's an indifferent thing because I've lived with it my whole life, saying that yeah, we're usually in conflict somewhere. Not that I agree with the majority of them, of course.
But when you're a soldier, you don't get that option. You are to do as you were told, and nothing more than that.
Well, I didn't say that I did. I'm just saying that that was my whole point. Is that other nations do tend to look at us that way.
Okay.
Which is fine. No, of course not. You don't have an option. Why would you? You don't have an option. That you give up that option. You are a member of a machine. It's kind of like this whole thing with. For some reason, I think there's this misconception that the military is in huge support of Trump because they're doing all these big shows, like, they had the flyover by the Blue Angels at Mount Rushmore, and they've got the Marine helicopter flying in front of Mount Rushmore, and they got flyovers from Air Force One, and I think the American public seems to think that, like, oh yeah, they wouldn't do that if it wasn't in support of the president. I'm like, no, you dummies. They do whatever they're told to do. They don't have to like the president. They don't have to support his politics. They don't have to vote for him. They just can't talk shit about him and not do what he asks. That's the whole point. It's an authoritarian dictatorship. It's not a corporation where you have your own opinions and can do whatever you want.
Sponsored by the U.S. military. Go Army. Go Air Force.
That's true. It's true.
I agree.
You're not really allowed to, even if you don't like Trump and you're a member of the armed forces, it's not like you can sit there and talk shit about him at work. You'll get a gentle reminder, at least where I came from, you get a gentle reminder. When I was in, Clinton was president the majority of the time. So, most of the people I knew did not care for President Clinton too much. But nobody sat there and said, fuck him and screw that guy. I'm like, he's our boss. And you're a member of literally a dictatorship. So you could get into a lot of trouble for that. One could look upon that if you really want to get a crazy hair up their ass. They could look like that and consider that treason if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I remember someone saying something like that when I was in the military. On the day of election, I remember walking in, they go, Sergeant, who'd you vote for? And I knew this guy was actually a hardcore supporting of the other guy. And I said, who I vote for is nobody's business. And you should respect that. Asking that type of question is wrong, and you know it. So, and I literally said, it's not none of your damn business of who I vote for. It's my business. But that's the way it goes.
That's true. It is. No, I don't know why anybody even asks. Kind of more of a personal thing that you shouldn't have to ask. You shouldn't ask in that way anyway.
And I talk to people. I said, it's like I talked to my son about voting because now he's 19 and he can vote. He can vote when he was 18. But this is his real first political election. I said, I don't care who you vote for. Just make sure that you've got the facts of what you're doing, not just going on because of popular opinion, right? If you think, I don't care if you think Trump is good, right? And you've got the facts to back it up, by all means, back it up. If you think Clinton is good or Biden is good, back it up, right? Because a lot of people will challenge you to make sure that you know your facts. However, a lot of people also won't challenge you, and they'll just go with popular opinion. This is what I heard on the internet, dude.
Yeah, but you don't have to have that. That's the other point, though, of being American is you don't have to have facts to back anything up. Just like you said, it's no one's business who you're voting for, and it's also no one's business your rationale for voting for that person in the first place.
Oh, I agree with that too. However, it's like if you're going to vote, at least be smart about it with your vote.
Except that's our right not to either.
Yeah,
that's the unfortunate thing. You don't have to know shit about that person. You could do an eeny, meeny, miny, mo if you want to. Or you could, as you're sitting in line, you could look to the person right to you and say, "Hey, who should I vote for?" And they could tell you who to vote for, and that might be your way of doing it. Yeah, there is no responsibility as much as people seem to think that there's no educational responsibility or of any sort on whether or not you vote on or who you vote for or your reason for voting for that person. You can vote a straight party if you want to, whether you know anybody at all, it doesn't matter.
Wow,
It's our strange right that we have that we
that
all
is so
respect
awesome.
and defend. Well, it's true, and you don't have to have a reason. You can just vote.
So what other strange facts do we have?
Let's see. Wearing pajamas in public is strange. Many foreigners are shocked to see Americans wearing pajamas in public. Yeah. Some locals, however, also think wearing pajamas makes people look like idiots, no matter how comfortable the loose clothes are.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
What's this like? The trend has been going on for what now? Probably a good 10 years of people just consistently wearing pajamas in public. Because
When
used to be, it wasn't uncommon to see people have like their toddlers in pajamas to do like a quick run to the grocery store or something. But now everybody's in pajamas during the middle of the day. Not even, or I can remember the first time I really saw adults wear pajamas was when I got out of the army and I was taking my first college courses on campus. You would see the kids roll out because I for some reason I decided I was going to take early morning classes, and they'd roll out, they'd be in their pajamas, and you know they were going right back to bed as soon as class was over. But now you
okay,
see pajamas everywhere.
I used to when I worked as a door guard for my son's elementary school, I used to see moms all the time in pajamas. What really threw me was the nighties that they would wear, but pajamas, yeah. You actually had to think about that one. No, yeah, I got used to people wearing pajamas all the time.
Yeah. Well, I can remember seeing people drop their kids off when I was in school as a kid with moms with what are the little rollers in their hair, little
Okay,
curlers,
yeah,
those little things. Yeah, but they
rollers,
were
yeah.
wearing, but you know, they always had coats on, so you're assuming that maybe they were. But this is, I think there's more talking about how it's not uncommon. I mean, you could go out right now, you'd see people in pajamas.
I find them rather comfortable, but I don't think I would wear them out in public.
Mine's,
No,
I'm
I
going
had
with a
to at one
never. I'm
point.
going with a never on me. Never will that happen.
I had to at one point wear pajamas out in public, though. I did. And the reason why was I had a cast in my hand. I had an industrial accident and they put a cast in my hand. So any type of jeans wearing up that had a zipper or anything like that was impossible, next to impossible to wear. So I had to wear loose fitting pajama pants to wear. If you really think about it, if you got your hand in a cast, right, and you're a left-handed or a right-handed person, you got your primary hand, it is hard to wear zippers. It really is. Especially when I had to keep my arm elevated after surgery. You know, I couldn't wear that. I had to wear sweats for like uh I want to say almost 4 or 5 weeks. And
Hmm.
it sucked. It really did. Until I got used to wearing jeans again. And then I could like, okay, I couldn't zip up properly, or I could zip up, but I had to make sure that, it was a struggle. So I can understand wearing them. They are comfortable, you know, and I want to wear the unicorn pajamas I have. I just so I told my wife one day, it's like if you ever see me wearing unicorn pajamas, you just know I'm just trying to make the world a better place. So I want to wear those. And
Well, at
she
this
wouldn't,
point, you could wear them and no one would notice
yeah.
because
Well,
lots of people wear pajamas.
she wouldn't let me wear those for my birthday. I wanted to wear this for my birthday. I thought that'd be so cool.
Is it a onesie?
Actually, it's a unicorn onesie costume. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
I thought
I think that would be all right. I think it'd be
I,
fine.
I think
My daughter has one of those. I'm sure she outgrew it, but she had one.
I think the next Power Blackout that we have in our area, just to make sure, I'll just wear one outside. So when people go, "Did you see the unicorn lady at night during the Power Blackout?" I'm like, "No, where was it?" Give them something to talk about.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That might bring some joy to some people's lives.
I think it would. Just my mere presence does, I know, but I want to go one step further. All right,
Here's
so what
another one.
else?
Here's another one. Too much information when talking to strangers. I agree with this one. Many foreigners agree that Americans are friendly, outgoing, and easily approachable, but they can also overdo it and be a little on the TMI side when it comes to talking to strangers, especially when they've been drinking. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I find that people tell me way too much information and I don't even know them. And I'm like, I really don't need to know that. I don't know why. That seems to happen to my wife a lot too. She'll come over and be like, this person, she'll just tell me a conversation she was having with someone. I'm like, why on earth would this person, why would they tell you that? They don't even know them. She's like, I don't know. People just it does seem like a pretty common thing. Like, I don't need to know. I mean, not even in a medical situation. Do I need to know that you strained really hard when you were sitting on the toilet and you popped a hemorrhoid and it's been going on for 3 weeks now and you just can't seem to push that baby back in? I'm not sure why I need to know that. Why is that interesting for me?
I think the prognosis on this is that it's, once again, it goes back to why I say things out in public sometimes, is because I feel uneasy and I want to make a connection, a familiarity with that person, make a connection so it's not so awkward. Now, you lived in Germany, I lived in the Netherlands and England, and whenever you go out and about, there are no connections if you're on a foreign land, unless you're from that land. So you want to try and make a connection so you blend in. If there's a problem, you know your entering, your exits and your entries, right? So I could see doing something like that a lot, unless I'm in a country where they don't speak English. So, yeah, or I just keep my mouth shut and it's like I assess the situation. I think that's with anybody though sometimes, but when you go to a certain place, you want to make sure that you understand what you're doing. Sort of like you guys tease me sometimes for saying too much, and it's like it's a coping mechanism once again.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the coping mechanism is not for me to spill my guts about myself. Is generally I ask leading questions to other people because people like to talk about themselves more than they like to hear you talk about yourself. So instead of me blabbering on about myself, I usually ask people about themselves so that they can talk and I don't have to.
Well, also that's your profession too. You need to have them talk to you about what's wrong with them. And
No, but I ask pointed questions. I'm asking pointed questions. I don't need to know all these other things.
Yeah. Once again,
let's use the dojo as an example.
Did you know I'm a black belt?
Yeah.
By the way.
I'm going to use the dojo as an example. For some reason, and this is one of those things that just irks the fucking shit out of me. For some reason, I don't know why, I feel like a lot of the people come to do our form of jiu-jitsu, Okinawan jiu-jitsu. For some reason, we seem to get a lot of people who have permanent injuries or have bad injuries, and they think that they're going to pick this one because they can do this one with their permanent injuries, like as if it's like not a big deal. Like you won't have to do anything if you do our style, because you've got this chronic injury and you should be able to work through it or only modify what you do in order to do it. So everybody wants to come there. I swear to God, until as soon as you do something with them, they're like, oh, we have to be really careful because I have this permanent injury over here or whatever. I'm like, well, if you knew that in the first place, why would you come do a sport that is going to require you to utilize that part of your body? And what really fucking irks the shit out of me is when they tell me this minor bullshit complaint that they have, as I'm sitting there going, oh, really? That's fascinating. I've got a screw in my neck that holds the odontoid process on my C2 that could have killed me when I broke my neck. But that's fine. You tell me about your quirky little shoulder that you got that really bothers you. I've had surgery on my shoulder too. Anyway, so they'll go on and on and on about their bullshit. And I'm just sitting there going, That's really fascinating. I
love how you interject your medical knowledge in our conversations.
Anyway, as they go on and on about their bullshit, you know what I end up telling them?
What do you wind up telling them?
I'm like, wow, that really sucks. You know what you should do? There's this other guy who does our style with us. His name's Bill. When Bill comes, you should really bitch to Bill about all your injuries that you have.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Now, so let me give a shout out to my my good friend Bill, who does jiu-jitsu with us. Bill has a lot of injuries.
He does.
From an accident, and Bill's no little bitch and doesn't complain about them. So, and these are pretty devastating injuries. And so whenever people start to bitch about their little whiny bullshit, like because nobody else has ever had an injury, that's what I usually say. I'm like, you should really talk to Bill when he comes, and you should complain to Bill about your injuries and just, see what Bill says.
On the flip side on that, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but on the flip side, we have been led to, in the martial arts community, some of us have, there's this kind of stigma, sorry, of it being, yeah. Well, okay, I'm looking for the right word here. There's this kind of misnomer, we'll say, of it being flowing and energy, almost like Tai Chi, until you realize that in order to get to that level where it's flowing, you have to put in a lot of hard work to get there. And one of the questions I always ask when I first start training somebody is, do you have any medical anomalies I should be aware of? And they look at me, why are you asking this? And I said, well, someone wanted to do.
Because I'm fucking nosy.
No, well, yeah, no, okay, I'm fucking nosy. No, someone was doing Kabuto with me, first class, and they said, go train him.
Let's explain what Kabuto is for those of us who don't know what Kabuto is.
Kabuto is Okinawan weapons. Right? I have a black belt in Okinawan weapons.
In case anybody wanted to know that. I'm not sure anybody did, but please continue.
Did you know I have a black belt in karate? So anyway.
I don't care, but I knew that. So
anyway. Yeah, I know.
So anyway, you were being nosy, asking them about their medical.
And he said, no, I don't. And as we progress, right, and I can't, and on that part, I can't remember if I asked the question or not, but I usually ask the question 99% of the time. We have to stop halfway through the lesson. And I'm like, what's wrong? He says, I can't handle it anymore. And I'm like, you're just holding a bow, right? And that's all you're doing is, I'm teaching some basic hand motions, some basic foot motions, nothing too hard. Well, it turns out that this person had a spinal injury at one point, right? Or a lower back injury. And I said, it would have been nice to know that so I could have gone a little bit easier on the lesson. And I wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary that can't be done with anything. But still knowing that there was a chance for injury now because of this injury flaring up or of it, I can't work as well as I need to with you. Now I have to modify halfway through the lesson what I need to do instead of modifying it from the beginning to work.
Well, see, therein lies the problem, though. I don't feel like you need to modify it in the first place. Because here's the thing, right? If you have this misconception about what it's like, I think that people, for us, right, maybe they look at the menu of options of martial arts classes that you can take, and they're like, oh, well, the description of this one is, I think I could do that because it's not like I'm going to be kicking and punching and twirling and all this other stuff like karate does, and it's not like I'm going to be lifting weapons. Oh, I can totally do this. And then if you watch us, maybe you come and just observe a little practice of ours, it kind of looks phony and fake because, maybe somebody grabs somebody and the next thing you know, the person who grabbed them is on the ground and it looks like the other person didn't do anything. So, and it's true. That's what it looks like to me. I've told this to even our class. I said, I think that it's part of the misconception is that people look at this and it looks fake because it looks like we're not doing anything until we show you what we're doing. And they're like, oh, fuck, that hurts.
Oh, I've been on the receiving end of that.
That's why the other person dropped and it looked like we didn't really do anything. So it looks like it's fake and phony. It looks like those goofy videos you watch where somebody puts their hand up in those quote martial arts classes and the other person flies back. It does look fake and phony. I've looked at the training videos of the stuff that I've taken pictures of and videos of just with training. I'm like, oh yeah, it does look phony, and I can understand why people would be like, oh, I can totally do this because it doesn't look like it takes much physical activity whatsoever. It doesn't take much physical activity, but it's very painful. So people who have chronic injuries, I never understand why they come to do our style. I'm like, you already hurt. We're going to hurt you more. So to sit there and say that we have to modify our style for them so they can do the style, to me is a waste of fucking time.
Well, I didn't say modify the style. I said modify the lesson. That's different.
No, not really. Because you're not teaching them. If you modify it, you're really not teaching them what you're learning. You're modifying your style in order for them to take it.
No, I'm modifying the lesson, not the style. I can still show you how to do a circle block, right? But if your shoulder's hurting you, I can show you how to do the circle block, and then you can practice it at your leisure to make it work for you. I'm not modifying anything. But if your back is hurting, right, and I've shown you the basic steps of what you need to know, I can move on to another lesson of where you're not rotating your shoulders so much. I'm still showing you the basic lesson. I'm still showing you the basic movements, right? Teaching you the same words I learned. I'm just modifying the lesson to fit you. Now, as you progress, right, the motions are going to get a little bit more complex.
Boring. Ding. Moving on. Anyway.
Well, the motions are going to get a little more complex. What are you going to do?
That's my point. Is instead of modifying everything, which is what you're doing, you are modifying. So you're not teaching them what they've learned. You're not teaching them the. You're not teaching them the style. You're making a modification for them for their own purposes.
No, I'm teaching them the style. I'm just not going to their pace. Going to my pace, but now I'm going to their pace. But you're right. I won't get into the dynamics of how I've been tasked to show something. So moving on.
The point is that the majority of them are pussies. That's the point. That's the point I'm making. I'm like, if like do stuff within your. Let me go back to my example with Bill. Okay.
Okay.
He still does everything that we do.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bill's a great guy.
Now, there's a difference between having some aches and pains in somewhere and modifying it for this quote person, as opposed to something that doesn't function. I used him as an example. There's an appendage of his that does not function properly. In other words, it doesn't grip like everybody else's does.
It's not his penis.
No, it's not his penis. We don't know how Bill's penis works. As far as we know, he's a giant, so he probably has a giant penis, and good for him. No,
Bill,
so
if you're listening, we love you, bro.
Yeah.
Come on to the podcast.
So the modifications that are done in his respect are based on the fact that, with the gripping of that hand. But he still is able to do the majority of it. So the modifications he does it on his own. He manipulates the style to his own needs. Not so much that we have to teach him how to do it, but he's still able to do what we can do.
I agree.
When people won't do the stuff with us, or they sit out half the class, they're like, oh, I've got this. And you're like, then don't fucking come. Don't fucking come. That's my point. Don't fucking come to the class. If you think that taking our style is going to be, why take it? So that you can say that you do a martial art, and then just so that you want to say, is it bragging rights? I don't fucking get it. Let me bitch some more. Okay? And then on top of that, let me tell you something else. Let me point at you also. Let me tell you something else.
If you can't see us, he's pointing at me.
Here's what else I can't stand when I'm talking about people who share too much, right? So I'm at another class last night, right? Another class that I take, weapons oriented in this case, because we're trying not to grapple or anything like that. So more of a Western martial art, European type. And I'm wearing my T-shirt that's got my jump wings on the front, and it says Airborne on the back. We get done working out, and this we're putting our stuff away, and this guy says to me, "Oh, so are you airborne?" And I'm like, "No, I just like the fucking shirt." I mean, I know there are people out there who would do that, and I highly recommend you don't wear an airborne shirt if you're not airborne, because that just makes me want to slap you. Anyway, so he says that. So are you airborne? I said, yeah. He said, now I didn't really catch what he said, so I might be misquoting this, but I think he said I was in an airborne unit also. Now that saying you were an airborne unit doesn't mean that you were airborne, so I don't know if this guy was actually airborne or not. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he was. So he's telling me where he was at. I'm like, oh, that's nice. That's nice. But the first thing he says to me, Ronz, and this is what pissed me off, is he said,
please let us know.
He says, but that was a long time ago before you.
Okay, so why did that piss you off?
Because that's a real jump in assumption. Because I'm looking at the guy going, oh, really? Before me, huh? How long ago were we talking there, buddy? So you were in a long time ago? When was that? He's like, oh, yeah, I was in from like 92 to like 96 or something like that. I was like, oh, really? That's fascinating. He's like, yeah. I said, yeah, well, I joined in 91 and I got out in 98. He's like, oh, I thought I was a lot older than you are. I'm like, no, it's just because you're a fat piece of shit. Which is what I wanted to say, but the polite me didn't. The polite me didn't say that because I'm nothing if not polite.
Oh
But
no! Wow.
why do you
The
make that assumption?
Beaveman.
Why do you make that assumption that you're older than me and you were in back in the day and blah blah blah? Well, I don't understand
Probably
that.
because the way you look. I mean, honestly, I mean, most people could mistake you for being in your late 20s.
I
I
don't think
mean,
that'd be one hell of a stretch to mistake
not
me for being in
really,
my 20s.
not for me.
That would be a
But I know
very,
you personally,
very,
so
very hard 20s. Yeah.
I
So
know
anyway,
some very hard 20s. I mean, come on. People think of me as old because I have thinning hair and I look like a grandpa, and I'm like, no. In fact, I remember walking my son to school, and someone says, "Is that your grandkid that you're walking to school?" I said, "No, that's my son." Right? He must have been about 6 or 7. And I'm like, they go, "What?" I said, "That's my son." Now, when I do karate, we had a guy in there with his son, right? And he was, I think, in his 60s and his or 50s, and his son was 5, right? So when you looked at him, he wasn't the grandfather, he was the father. So he definitely looked older than being a dad. So, I mean, honestly, you don't look that old. It must be that hard drinking and fast living lifestyle you live.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just once again, people, stop making stupid assumptions. You just make yourself look like an ass. Well, that's, assumption. Assume.
Assume
Ass. You.
out of you and me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there was my bitch about that.
Okay.
Back in the
So
day. Back in
moving
the
back on to
day.
the facts, let's move on.
America is all about its unhealthy food.
I would agree.
People all over the world associate America with supersized food portions, and in my opinion, supersized people. Many foreigners also link America's fast food culture to health problems and the demise of small family farms. I don't know that they think about us that much, but I would say health problems. I think that the world probably does consider us pretty unhealthy. Until they can get their own McDonald's, and then they're like, oh, God, we never had, thank you so much for sending us this McDonald's. Now we too can have heart disease, just like you guys. No
Well,
offense, McDonald's. You got to make a buck too.
I would say you're accurately on that because once again, you and I were overseas, and you don't see a whole. Well, England, you see some pretty heavy people, but for most of Europe, you don't do it. You don't see a lot of unhealthy people.
I think Germany eats pretty unhealthy. I would not say Germany is a pretty healthy eating country. They put gravy and mayonnaise on everything.
The Netherlands puts gravy, not gravy, but mayo on their fries.
Yeah,
So,
I mean they do that in Germany too. So when you go there, if you want your fries, they usually give you mayonnaise and they say, "Do you want gravy also?" And I'm like, "Oh, gravy and mayonnaise on my fries," you say.
wow, I'm
Not
gonna have to
bad.
try that if I ever go back over there.
Yeah, a lot of their dishes have gravy all over it. So gravy, potatoes, some sort of meat product. I mean, I don't know what they eat like now, but that's what they ate like when I was there 20 some years ago, 28, yeah, whatever, 28 years ago. And it was pretty unhealthy eating. A lot of course, beer with it, lots of meals, lots of alcohol, lots of carbs, lots of fatty foods. I
Well,
don't know about the
beer,
rest of Europe.
beer
I don't know
being
about the
one
rest of
thing,
Europe, but hey, I know
beer being
Germany's
one
not
thing.
super
I mean,
healthy.
I didn't see a whole lot of heavy set people when I was over in the Netherlands. Just it was just that. But I would tend to see we have a lot of obesity here in America because of fast foods.
Well, Netherlands has a pretty heavy, not heavy as in people, but they've got a pretty good diet of it's a lot of fish in their diet though too. So they get
Mm,
a lot of healthy oils and things like that too.
okay.
I didn't consider the Netherlands when I was in the Netherlands for you're only there for like a month, but they seem to eat much healthier than the Germans did. So I don't know,
Yeah, when I lived over there, I would agree with that. And the people were friendlier too.
and a lot bigger, like a lot genetically taller people, very tall
Hmm.
people in the Netherlands that I saw. Of course, maybe that was just the special forces. I don't know. I would assume that most people are pretty big.
Oh, okay. So what's our next fact?
Yeah, that one's kind of boring.
Well, no, if you really wanted to bring it up, the reason They have a healthy sex life over there too. They have the red light district, which keeps them pretty thin.
Right.
So there you go. Another tidbit fact. I mean, if we had red light districts over here, I think people would be thin.
Americans are arrogant.
We are not. We know we are.
That's I don't even have to argue that one. I'm like, yeah, I agree. But I would also say that some countries are also arrogant as well. Depends on your state of nationalism. There was one thing that it wasn't in this one, this particular article, but it was a different article that I thought was kind of interesting that is pretty specific to what's going on now is that a lot of Americans don't, even though they say they're Americans, when they say what they are, they always say something else. Like, oh yeah, I'm a Polish American or I'm a Greek American or they always like what to they always everybody wants to say what their nationality is or I mean they want to say that they're American but they always want to say oh but my ancestors are Polish or oh my ancestors are German or oh my ancestors are French. I'm like who gives a shit?
Once again, it's a self-identifying thing of trying to fit in. Where's your heritage? Where's your cultural heritage from? Right?
It seems like we're shouldn't we be beyond that though? Shouldn't we just say we're Americans and let it go?
I agree.
I mean, the whole ethnicity thing, I don't sit there and say, oh, I'm a Mexican American. I don't usually say that. I'll usually say I'm American. I've
Do you
got
not
a
say that because of fear of
Hispanic heritage.
deportation?
What's that?
Do you not say that because you might get deported?
I can't be deported.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
How could I be deported?
Well, you're Mexican American. You don't have a green card, right?
They're right. I don't have a green card. Why would I have a green card if I'm a natural citizen? I was born,
I know.
born in the
Well, it was
country.
funny. I remember this story from one of the guys I was serving with in England. He was going through, I think, some of the southern states, and he got pulled over. And he, of course, was Hispanic origin, but he, of course, he was born in the United States, and he was serving in the Air Force. Well, anyway, as the story went, he got pulled over, and the whatever redneck sheriff or whatever police officer pulled him over, says, "Y'all got a green card?" And he pulled out his military ID, and he says, "I sure do." And I thought that
This
was
one's
a great
green. Go fuck
story.
yourself. This is green. Now go fuck yourself.
Literally, it's like, you want to pull me over? You better have a damn good reason.
Yeah, that was the good old days, though. You remember the good old days when you could fly and you didn't have to even go through TSA? Because there was no TSA, but you didn't have to do nobody could search your bag and all that other stuff. You just showed your ID and you're like, yeah, I don't need to do all that crap.
Not true.
Yeah, true. Dude, I came back. I went through New York. I've been through Chicago, all those other things. When they tried to search, I just showed my ID. I'm like, nope. And they're like, oh, sorry.
I remember to that effect. I do remember getting approached about having my bag searched. I was coming back from America, going back into England. And I was, Heathrow security was pretty damn tight. About every 10 seconds, someone approached you to make sure that you had the proper stamp on your ticket or you had your ticket wherever you were going. I mean, you weren't going to get anywhere without them knowing about it. And I've got my luggage with me, and I got this, and some guy approached me and says, "Have you had your luggage checked?" I said, "Oh, I'm with the military." Oh, okay, fair enough, go. So if I didn't say that little phrase, I would have had my bag searched. But because I said I'm going up to Lakenheath, where I'm stationed, I'm like, oh, okay, go, you're good.
So what you're saying is you just proved my point.
Yeah, but if I didn't say that, I would have had my bag searched.
Yeah, but you did say it.
You're right, I did.
Point. Then but it's not like that anymore. It hasn't been like that forever. Now they can. I mean, with good reason, as we have seen, of course, where like we said before, just because you were in the military doesn't make you a good person. Just because you're in the military now doesn't make you a good person. What was that? Some douchebag that they're bringing up on charges of treason for plotting to kill a squad who's like linked to some Satanist, whatever cult.
Oh, I didn't hear about this. This is interesting.
Oh, you haven't heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Was it he's in the what's it called? The Order of the Nine Angles.
Right there. That just I'm probably gonna get flagged for the.
Oh yeah, the Order of the Nine Angles. is a satanic and left-hand path occult group based in the United Kingdom, but with associated groups in various other parts of the world. And let me see if you can find it.
Yeah, U.S. Army soldier just charged about a week ago.
Yeah, so once again, don't believe that everybody is altruistic who's in the military. There are fucking weirdos at all times. I remember one time, this was when I was back in, man, I can't remember. We were running down the road. We were running down Ardennes, which is the main road that you run on at the 82nd. I don't know if it is anymore, but we're running down there. We're running along, and something flies over our heads, and one of the guys in my squad is like, "Was that a firework?" And I can remember, I think it was our first sergeant or something. He's like, "Shut up!" while we're running. And so later on, we find out that, it was Towel Stadium, if I remember correctly. Later on, we find out that some person had been kind of in the wood line at Towel Stadium and started shooting at people who were doing PT, and that thing that went over our head was a tracer round. And this guy was taken out. This lone gunman was taken out by some troops who maneuvered on him and took him out. So
Wow.
there you go. It goes to show you that this shit has been going on forever. There's people that snap. There's people that should not be in there. There's people that join the military just to kill people. There's people that join the military just to rob people. So all kinds of crazy bullshit out there. However, back to this guy that they just we were just talking about with the old Order of the Nine Angles there. If he's found guilty, I say hang him. Want to be a traitor? Let's go back to the good old traitor days.
I was going to say, do they still do the hanging?
I think that you can still get hanging and fire squad because it is a federal crime and you're a member of the military. So the old ways are still the best ways. Hang him.
Awesome.
However, anybody's got any comments on that? Please feel free to send us that comment at theslaptailnation.com. You can leave a post on our website, or you can also email us at slaptailsquad@gmail.com.
I like that.
Yeah. And what's your thought on that if you're found guilty of treason?
If I'm found guilty of treason,
not you,
let's back that up.
The metaphor you, not you, dummy.
Yeah, well, if he's found guilty, they're going to bleed him for every piece of information that they can. Right? He might get life if he's got information that they can use, but he won't ever see the light of day. And if he does, he'll have to go underground. Right? He literally will not be a free man ever again. Right? So his life is screwed either way. Right? He'll go.
I mean, if you get to stay, if they don't hang you, I guess they don't firing squad you, and they just put you in federal prison. Then I guess you got a lifetime to look forward to of making big rocks into little rocks.
They still even do that.
I don't know. I'd like to think that that's what they do.
It'd be really cool. What are you getting for Christmas this year? A rock? There you go. Of course, they could also put them on the front line for testing.
Testing what?
Exactly. They do test prisoners for certain reactions to chemicals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so let's move on to the more exciting facts that you have now.
No, those were it. They were not that much interesting. The rest of them weren't that interesting.
So
last final update though on our person who is writing some news for us, Emerald.
Okay.
She was supposed to be submitting her second news story for us. Unfortunately, she texted me the other day and she's like, "Hey, I got a fever and I don't feel good. What should I do?" I'm like, gave her some tips.
Was it for the fever of a Pringle?
No, gave her some tips and said, "Hey, you probably better get tested for the coronavirus." And, yep, another statistic there. Another statistic. Positive.
Oh, she did. Wow. So on that, because we've been doing this podcast for quite a bit now, are you the same person you were when you first started this?
Meaning?
Meaning, are you more prone to speaking out in public or withdrawing from public on opinion and saving it for the podcast?
I save everything for the podcast, yes. Because the rest of it is I can reach a much larger audience this way. It was designed for me to be myself in the first place, and the majority of the people that know me outside of the podcast don't know me really at all.
Is that a good thing for you?
Sure. It's
Sure.
fine. Sure, it's fine. I don't mind. It's fine with me. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I was thinking how the podcast has changed the way I think too. It's like I really do like doing the podcast. Once again, it's more of a privilege to do something like this, right, than it is anything else, because I get to actually brag about something I get to do that contributes to the well-being of people.
Well, at least the two of us. It gets
Well, yeah.
at
Well,
least the two of us. It contribute. If we're at least we're contributing to our own mental health, I think.
well, the thing is, it's sort of like having a voice for people out there that want a voice that can't have a voice, and that's the way I look at it. When we go out and about and we do our thing here, I mean, how many people get to have a voice like this? And that's what I love about it.
Well,
I mean, how
anybody
many
with a
people
mic
want
and
to
an
do something
internet
stupid
connection.
but don't care to do anything stupid because they know they're going to do something stupid and get in trouble for it?
Right. Well, you never know. They could round all of us podcasters up too. One never knows.
And I think you mentioned at one point this was the last area of freedom of speech, and I had to think about that for a second. And I thought, you're right, it is. It's one of those things where you can't say something and get away with it. It's sort of like the Lenny Bruce, the Sam Kinison, the Richard Pryor of what you can say and what you can't say. Right? Those guys were all pioneers of freedom of speech, and nowadays we're going, what's right and what's wrong. And people are getting stupid out there. I agree with that. I really wish they wouldn't. I wish they would follow advice on protocol, or at least doing the right thing for them. But I don't see how that's going to change anything from people being stupid. I
No.
really wish it would.
No, it's understandable. I mean, the escalation of violence is not appropriate. It's and there's two sides. There's more than two sides to every story. Obviously, if people are out there protesting, why do you need to loot? Why do you need to burn things down? I don't understand that. If you're out there, I saw like one little, like a cartoon, and it was somebody was talking to somebody who was like burning and looting, and they're like, "Are you doing this because of George Floyd?" And the guy who was burning and looting is like, "Who's George Floyd?" Because that's kind of how you feel too. You're like, is this really are 90% of the people who are doing these things? Are they really supporting anything? Or are they just because they want to watch the world burn and destroy things and steal things? And that's kind of how I feel like it. So, I don't know what to do about all that. And why are you defacing Purple Heart statues? Why are you defacing Purple Heart monuments? What does that have to do with anything? I don't get it. Why are you pulling down a statue of Francis Scott Key? What is that? That's the revolution. What does that have to do with anything? Why are you destroying that? I don't understand the point of destroying things and not using our minds to make the world better, I guess. I guess I don't get that.
All right. So on that, have you ever turned a failure into a win?
I don't think so, because I've got a lot of failures. I'm not sure what I've done as wins.
Well, have you ever turned a failure into a win?
I have no idea. Nothing that stands out in my mind.
Nothing whatsoever.
Nothing that stands out in my mind. Nope. What failure have you done that you consider a win?
Well, I've turned it into a win. One was going for my black belt. I never thought I would achieve that. Right? And I stuck with it. I always thought, when anybody who's ever gone for a black belt at some point, right, quits sometimes, and they jump back in and they quit because of whatever. But I always thought I'm never going to make it to that point. And at some point, I had to turn around that failure attitude and make it a win. I started training harder. I actually had someone approach me saying, "Hey, this is where you're at. I want to get you to where you want to be." And they said, "Do you want your black belt?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do for you." Now, the 10%.
And we've heard this story before.
Yeah, the 10% was on them, the 90% on me, but they trained me, right? So.
And congratulations to the Ronz for doing that.
And yours,
again,
by the way, too, because I was at both your belts. But yeah, congratulations to you.
All right, and then some stats here. Let's throw out some stats for the week.
All right, I was going to say, what's the biggest lesson
top
you
cities.
learned from failure?
I have no idea. My whole life is a failure.
Well, there's a lesson to be learned.
Top cities in the last 7 days. This top one might surprise you. I'm not sure why. Dublin, Ireland.
All right.
Shout out to Dublin, Ireland.
I love that.
Dublin, Ireland. And then rounding out the top, we've got Vicksburg, United States, Tucson, United States, Arlington Heights, United States, Fostoria, United States, Black Falls, Canada, Kalamazoo, and Mountain View. There's our top.
There is Mountain View again.
Top 7 cities for the past 7 days. And also, I would like to say one comment out to a listener who commented on the podcast. I don't know who you are, but thanks for replying, or thanks for commenting. And his comment was as follows, in quotations. Man, that episode was weird. All right, thanks. Thanks for that, Mr. Seymour.Butts. Thanks for your comment. Thanks for listening. And
okay, so since you're throwing out random topics, here's one.
It's not really
What would a world populated by clones of you be like?
A world populated by clones of me be like?
Yes, what would they be like?
A bunch of people sitting around.
We'll say yes.
Sitting around, watching Netflix, hating going back to work, and thinking about all the things that they need to do but have procrastinated about doing. That's what it would be like. And in case anybody's interested, there's a sale on inner tubes in the local area. I'm not sure why anybody wants to buy a bunch of inner tubes, because they're not actual, recreation ones. They're actually inner tubes from tires. Always check out your local salespeople. They're very important.
Always. I think a world populated by clones by me would be anxiety-ridden, nerve-ridden, but we would rule with an iron fist, but a fair fist.
It's a very anxious fist. It's an anxious fist. I don't know how good that is, but hey.
And if you could have your own reality TV show, what would it be?
My own reality TV show?
What would it be?
I would say that I would still want that to be some sort of an office setting. I'm not sure what our industry would be, what our product would be, but that would be the most fun.
Yeah, sort of like Scrubs?
No, I just said I don't. If I wanted to be medical, I would have picked medical. I said some sort of an office setting. I didn't say a medical office setting.
Well, I was being in general because you didn't mention that.
No.
Wow, what did you just drop?
Charge. The cable. Yeah. What do you call it? The battery.
I don't know.
Battery pack. All right, that's it for us. I'm done.
You're done. You're spent already.
Spent already. All right, this has been me, the Beaveman.
And the Ronz.
Adios, Mooch.
I can't believe you still got me doing that shit.
Oh, you do it well. You do it well. Have a good one.
You too.